Hey guys, welcome back to the Admiral 24A12 project, which I really hope to finish up in this installment. But in order to do so, we need to extricate it. It's been packed away in this seldom used corner of the basement. Now, in order to get it out, I need to clear a path. Let's see, things got a bit out of hand since I built this display shelving system. The intent was to keep this corridor open, but between customers dropping stuff off and me picking up more stuff, things got a little out of hand, so we gotta move some things first. A lot of this is actually from my RCA projection set way back in the corner because I pulled it completely apart to bring it inside. So that's the back from it. We have 3 or 4 chassis from it scattered around, and some miscellaneous odds and ends. So all this needs to go, and then we can slide it. Now, there's one nice thing is that the Bakelite cabinet on carpet, it just glides along. So once I clear a path, it'll be super easy to move it around. Well, that was a bit of work to shift a whole bunch of stuff, but hey, here it is. And boy, I forgot how nice, how pristine this cabinet is. And not only that, but I don't know if I talked about this way back when, 7 years ago, but I think this is one of the more complete ones as it was found. I do have the metal back for it, and there was originally a metal cover underneath the chassis that are almost always missing. But I do have one for this set. And while moving this, I found a few things. And now I know where my big old screwdriver went. And one of my test sockets. You can put a tube into it, then measure the voltages around it. So that's what happens when you leave projects lying around. Now, when I originally worked on this, well, one, I lost the footage right after I attached the new power cord. That's what it looks like. And I got asked about gluing the base on to the CRT using that Permatex. See, I never did, because I just you can put it on, or I always put it on after I attach the base and solder the wires on. And once I realized that CRT was no good, I didn't even bother. But if I was going to, I reattach the base first, solder the wires on, then it's called flowable silicon. It's silicone. It's a thin glue, and it'll wick into the gap between the base and the glass. I've shown it in other videos. I'll try to remember to include a link. I did a whole series on repairing CRTs. Now, something else I didn't realize, or I realized as I reviewed the footage, is I did all this before I discovered how well CLR cleans up chassis. So that's one thing I want to be doing when I get back to this project. And there is that coil hiding in that bubble wrap there that needs to get reinstalled in this chassis. And yeah, so I got to clear off the workbench, get this back up there, reinstall that coil, fire it back up, and 7 years later, see how things are performing. Fun to take a little walk around the basement too, which is something I haven't been able to do very easily for a long time. You'll be seeing this in a video very soon that's about to get out of here. It's a predicted tandem that's been way overdue in getting done. Same with this guy. I got the chassis working. This is a K-part 19-inch metal cone CRT set. Have a little bit of work to do on the radio. That'll be getting done and out of here soon. Projection set, if you want to watch that, I'm sorry, but you got to join my Patreon. Just for $1 a month or more, of course, is appreciated. You can watch my work on that. And what I really wanted to show you was that guy. Just like that Admiral, I have footage on this set from years ago when I got it that I've never shared with you guys. Because for similar reasons, this project also got mothballed. I got this set a few years back from Doug Harlan. It's a Motorola. It's the first rectangular color set with their 23-inch CRT, which I know people aren't the biggest fans of, but this one works fairly well. So now that I can get at it more easily, I'm more likely to pull it out and continue working on it. For starters, purely cosmetic, but I pulled out the power supply chassis and audio amp. I want to give it a wipe down with CLR, see if we can make this look a little bit nicer. I wiped some on, let it sit about 5 minutes. Let's see what effect it had. Nice. Very promising. I think another pass is in order, and then that should do it. Also put some on the transformer here. Should really get repainted, but it's removing a lot of the corrosion. Alrighty, finished with a bit of detailing on the power supply audio amp chassis. Just used my latest trio of products I find that work really well: CLR, Simple Green, Windex, and denatured alcohol, especially on old sticky vinyl plastic insulated wires. Alright, let's move this aside, get out the main TV chassis, and see if I can refresh my memory on where I left things off. Hey, here's the main chassis up on the workbench, signal-lighted day for the first time in about 7 years. Here's that coil that needs to get reinstalled. Carefully put that to the side. I'll wipe down the chassis with CLR. Not necessary, but it's going to look a lot nicer, so I want to do it. Let's see. Hey, I did remember to reinstall the nuts on this coil. Now, let's talk about the focus issue. No pun intended, I had been focusing my attention back when I last looked at this on the resistors and the divider network and how the circuit functions electrically. Didn't pay much attention to this. As best I can remember, it's been a long time. But when I pulled this out, I immediately noticed that these screws are driven in awfully far. So this is the focus coil. And where it sits along this electron gun inside here has a profound impact, similarly to the amount of current that's flowing through it. So it looks to me like this is mounted really far in. So first thing I want to try doing is take a look at the circuit, and if my modification is still in there, remove it and back off on these screws. Something else I found curious was the mounting on this. So we got 2 screws up top with springs behind them. That's normal, and the reason they do this is how you do centering. There's no centering done electrically with controls. You do it mechanically by moving those screws in and out, which tweaks this focus coil, which has an impact on the centering of the image, as well as the focusing. But look down below, you can see that there are 2 outer holes, which aren't being used. And there's just one in the middle. As best I can remember, all the ones I've seen before used all 4 corner screws. And this they couldn't because, well, there's like an adapter bracket down there. Like it was originally meant to use 4 screws, and they put a bracket in there and used a 3rd instead. I don't understand why, or what the point of all that is. But it's definitely original because JJ, once they did the revisions, they would stamp everything with an orange number, so we have, or black, J chassis, J yoke, J focus coil. So yeah, let's clean this up, put all the tubes back in. Oh yeah, so I pulled all the tubes out and rechecked them. I think I found a couple that were marginal, nothing nothing major. Put all those back in. Check out the circuits or how the wiring is below. Reinstall that coil. Got the power supply back up here. Hook everything back up and turn it on. That's going to take me a little bit of time. Simply brush it on, let it sit a few minutes, and wipe it off. Sometimes I'll do a second pass, especially when it's blotchy like that. And then after that, to kind of neutralize, clean things, either the simple green or the Windex. And here it is after a second pass, and then a wipe down with some Windex. Now on to the rest. I unmounted the picture tube so I could clean under here, and I need to repair the base on it, but I wanted to talk a little bit about tuner. So I got a comment from a reader who saw my issue with the signal occasionally cutting out, and he mentioned or a potential issue with the tuner, which is these are piston caps, your trimmer caps for the tuner, and they have these collars around them that they're not soldered. I think I've seen on later ones, or I've certainly seen other ones very similar to this, where they soldered that washer looking thing to the body of this, but on this one they are not. And yeah, they are loose, and if they aren't making solid contact, that'd be a problem, because I'm sure this is supposed to be grounded when it's going down, and there's this, I think, a ceramic insulator that has a conductive coating on the outside to form the other side of the capacitor. Why they didn't solder them down, I don't know. I mean, like they did it with these tube socket tabs, but not on those. So that's one thing. Another thing is I never did replace the missing screws. So this I picked up on earlier that something looked odd. 2 screws are missing, and the 2 that are present are not originals. So I don't know if somebody removed it and tried to service it and put it back in. I don't know if it's a replacement. It's the right kind of tuner, but there were production run changes. They used several different types, or very similar looking but slight variations of this tuner. It'd be tough for me, in other words, to identify this as being 100% the original, but some monkey business happened here for sure. Well, I put everything back together. I have the 10 FP4 aluminized picture tube installed. I removed the modification I'd made to the focus circuit, and boy, it is terrible. It's worse than I remember it even being. That's as good as it gets. There's a focus control, so that's one extreme, and this is the other. Now, I had a notion that by moving the electromagnetic focus coil further back, it would get better. It gets worse as I go back. I can demonstrate that, I think, a little bit by manually squeezing on it to move it forward. Well, centering gets better, but the focus is still pretty darn bad. So it got me thinking, there's got to be something else to play here. That's just too bad. Now it occurred to me there is another possibility. I did actually see a somewhat similar problem, but it wasn't quite as severe in another Admiral I was restoring a while ago. And I eventually realized that the replacement resistor I put in here had gone open. So let's check it out. It's supposed to be a 3000 ohm resistor. And it's measuring about 4.5, which seems awfully odd. So let me free up one end of it so we can check it out of circuit. I hope that's the problem. Now the original, I think I put a 5 watter in there. I know it looks small, but modern parts can take more heat. But I think I got some beefier ones on hand. I might have some 10 watters I could throw in there if it really is bad. But boy, that's funny. If all these years that this set has been sitting idle, that was the problem all along, was a new part. Never make any assumptions if that is what bad. I mean, it certainly looks like it's bad because it should not be measuring 4,500. It should be measuring 3,000. Alrighty, I disconnected one end so it is completely out of circuit, so we can test it without any possible influence of anything else. And sure enough, it's open. So all this time, way back when, years ago, when I started working this and I was screwing around and theorizing and trying different resistor combinations in series with this was probably bad all along. Let's get another resistor. There we go, a shiny new 3K 10 watt resistor that tests good. So assuming this fixes the problem, a couple thoughts. One, never make any assumptions. If you've got a problem in a certain circuit and it's one you were working on and you put a part in and the circuit's not working the way you think it should, a good idea to double check the part that you just installed. Might have been faulty. Maybe that resistor was bad before I even put it in. I don't know, because I usually don't test parts before I install them because I assume they're brand new. They must be good. Not necessarily the case. Or may have been a power surge. Who knows? Another school of thought, especially when it comes to resistors, up the wattage. I usually double it. So if I find a half watt, like these little carbon comps all over, these are all half watters, I usually replace them with 1 watt resistors. Even this little guy here may look small, it's a 2 watt resistor. So replace half watts with 1 watt plus 1 watt with 2 watts. In this case, the original was a 5, I think. I've got a 10 in there. Should hold up a lot better. Let's give it a try. Nice. That was it. All along, that was the problem. Now, I am still near one end to get the good focus. I bet now I can back off on the screws and move that focus coil back. So let's give that a try. I did a little bit of work on the height, vertical linearity, and centering with those springs on the focus coil, and we're in pretty good shape. I still have the sharpest focus a little bit closer to one end of the travel on the focus control than I'd like, but that replacing that bad resistor sure made a significant difference. So I think we are just about done with electrical work on this set. Well, here's an interesting development. I was just recording a little segment talking about this nifty little all-in-one TV transmitter, and I noticed while doing the demo that I was smelling some really hot electronics. And I noticed that the current draw was going past 2 amps, or sorry, 1.5 amps. So I had to bump this up to a higher range. I've never had to do that before. And I noticed there was a smell of really hot electronics, and it was coming from this area. And I noticed the 6V6, this metal tube here, was getting really hot. Now, these metal tubes, especially if it's an audio output tube, can run pretty darn hot, so I wasn't sure if that was really an issue, but I was thinking to replace it with a glass version anyways, which I'm pretty sure is what this originally came with. When I was feeling how hot it was, I tapped it a little bit, and look what happened to the focus. It got all blurry. But that's not a bad thing, because I'd had to have this focus control close to one extreme to get the right focus. Now I get good focus in the middle of the travel, like it should be. So all this time, did I just have either a flaky tube or a flaky tube socket? Well, I'm trying to get it to behave the other way, and I haven't been able to. I'm just tapping the tube, wiggling it around. Now I'm curious to see if I let this thing cool down a bit, is it going to cool off? What I'm getting at is, as I mentioned in an earlier installment, the focus control, this is part of the focus circuit. It's a Class A biased audio output tube, steady current. I know it sounds weird, but it makes sense. It's a clever way to do it. And something else you may have noticed, you've been watching my beginner series to Restoring Vintage TVs, where I did an Admiral 30A1 chassis. That's from basically the year before this. It had 2 power transformers, 2 rectifiers, 2 filter chokes instead of filter caps to power the set. This does still have a 5U4 and a 5Y3, but only 1 power transformer. How did they get away with reducing the part count a bit? Part of it is this, using the audio output as a voltage divider kind of thing to power some of the circuits in the set, in lieu of having another power transformer, which meant they were able to basically get by with 1 transformer with a less complicated power supply. Otherwise, they're rather similar, but you imagine that as time goes on and TVs got more popular, and there was more competition, you wanted to reduce cost, and eliminating a power transformer, that's going to save you a lot of money. So that's part of why they came up with this wacky circuit. But yeah, geez, all the weirdness in this set. My replaced power resistor going bad. Whatever just happened with this. Oh, whoa, did you see that? It lost focus. Oh, there it goes. And now if I do this, all the way to counterclockwise, which is how I've had it for quite some time as I've been working on this set and tinkering with it. Okay, I'm going to wiggle the tube a little bit. Got blurry. Man, there's something up with this tube socket or this tube. Wow. Alrighty. Learned a lot troubleshooting this set, which is basically don't assume anything. I just rechecked the tube, but that's fine. But I know some of you are thinking, hey, wait a minute. Metal tubes, the outer metal casing, the shield, goes to one of the pins, which might be causing a problem. Maybe I'll have to check the data sheet to verify. And I also need to go back and look at the first video to verify that this came with the set, like it was installed, which I think means it was working okay at some point. Regardless, I'll dig up a glass one and install it. Alright, when 6v6 hunting, found a really good testing glass one, installed it. Focus is working like it should. We go off center to the left, out of focus. Sharp focus in the middle, go off to the right, out of focus. Exactly like it should be working. And do we have sound? Yes, we have sound. Is the tube getting really hot? Yeah, it is. So I still want to double check the voltages on it. I mean, yeah, tubes run hot. It doesn't seem crazy hot like that metal tube was running, where I couldn't even get near it. You could smell like the hot metal. I can put my hand over this. It's just warm. Now, how can you test voltages in a tube easily? Well, if you're lucky, or you shell out a few bucks, you can get one of these, which is a test adapter. So you can plug the tube into this, and then this into the socket, and they expose the pins so you can check them all. I suspect, though, that everything is fine now. So if it was way off, then this wouldn't be working right like it is. Everything seems to check out fine with the voltages on the tube. And I inspected the socket and didn't see any obvious problems. So what I'm going to do is tighten up the pins a little bit, or that's the sockets where the pins go into. And the way I'm doing that is, notice where each pin can go in, there's sort of a little channel on opposite sides there. If you take a thin, pointy bit of metal, like a nail or the end of a probe, and put it into those notches, you can bend. There's a little metal collar down in there with a slit on one end, kind of like this. and so I'm putting pressure on it to kind of smush it a little bit. The pin goes in in here, and if these get spread out a little bit too far, you don't get great contact. So by bending them inwards, it should make a better grip. I'll go around and do all those, put the tube back in, I'll put some pressure on it, and see if it stays stable. Alrighty, finished going around. Let's try putting a tube in. And yeah, it's taking more force, so there we go. Definitely seems to have tightened up the pins. Now let's fire it up and make sure it actually was a successful repair. Alright, got it fired back up. We have our lovely test tone. Oh, now let's see. I think we got it. The normal operation is not going to get jostled around that much. Alright, that's enough for this installment. So much for getting it done. But at least we finally figured out the focus problem. Next installment should be the final installment, and that will be reassembly and final touches. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.